Star Brittney Griner will be suspended without pay for 7 regular season games.
Everyone thinks they already know how this story ends. Brittney Griner said something ugly about Caitlin Clark, and the WNBA finally suspended her for it. Except, that never happened. Not that year. Not for that reason. The league never confirmed it. But here's the twist nobody talks about. Griner was suspended. 3 games. But that came over a year later. And it had nothing to do with Clark. It was about a foul out in Atlanta, and later, a slur claim. 2 real events, more than a year apart. Somehow, they got stitched into one fake story. Today, we're pulling them apart. Piece by piece. Let's get into it. The foul that started everything. To understand how this rumor got built, go back to one night, May 22, 2025. Indiana Fever on the road against the Atlanta Dream. Final score, 81-76, Fever win. By this point, Caitlin Clark wasn't just a player. She was a phenomenon. Every team she faced knew it. Crowds got bigger everywhere she played. TV numbers spiked too. Arenas that used to sit half-empty were suddenly packed, even for a road game against a team that hadn't made real playoff noise in years. And with that spotlight came something every breakout rookie deals with. Opponents playing her harder than almost anyone else on the floor. That's not a conspiracy. That's just what happens to rising stars in physical sports. It happened to Michael Jordan early in his career. It happens in every league. And it was happening to Clark all through that stretch of 2025. Every hard screen. Every shove through a pick. Every close whistle got magnified because the whole league was watching her every move. That night, Atlanta's Brittney Griner was one of those opponents. She was already an 11-year WNBA veteran, a former #1 overall pick, a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, one of the most dominant defenders the league has ever seen. She was matched up against a Fever team trying to control the tempo early. The 2 teams battled through 4 close quarters. Late in the 4th, Griner picked up her 6th foul, the one that ends your night for good. Here's the key detail, that whistle had nothing to do with Clark. Game records are clear on this. The foul that fouled her out came on a drive by Natasha Howard, Griner's own teammate, not Clark. That detail matters more than it seems. A huge chunk of what followed just assumed, without ever checking, that Griner's anger in that moment was about Clark. But the box score says otherwise. She wasn't ejected for guarding Clark too hard. She fouled out defending her own teammate's matchup on a completely different play. It's a small detail, but it's exactly the kind of detail that disappears the second a story starts moving faster than the facts behind it. Griner walked toward the bench, clearly upset. Anyone watching could see that. And look, frustration after fouling out isn't unusual. Players vent. They mutter. They slam a chair. It's one of the most human moments in sports. That split second where a player realizes their night is over and there's nothing more they can do. It happens 1,000 times a season, in every arena, and it's usually forgotten by morning. What made this moment different wasn't what happened on the court. It's what happened to the clip after it left the arena. The clip had no audio. Here's the detail most retellings leave out completely. There was no audio. The camera caught Griner's face and her mouth moving as she walked to the bench. But the broadcast mics weren't close enough to catch bench chatter. No official audio of what she said has ever come out. Not from the league. Not from the broadcast. Not from anyone. So all you're left with is lip reading. And if you've ever tried to read lips off a blurry phone clip, you know how unreliable that is. Camera angle, video compression, how fast someone's talking, all of it distorts what people think they see. This isn't new either. Silent clips have blown up into full controversies in politics, sports, entertainment, for years. Because a silent video hands people a blank space. And people are really, really good at filling blank spaces with whatever they already believe. Within hours, the clip was everywhere, with 2 totally different readings attached to it. One side insisted Griner said something like, trash, followed by a phrase that sounded like a jab at Clark's race. Screenshots got captioned as fact. Commentary accounts spread it, with none of the doubt that should come with a silent, blurry clip. Conservative commentator Riley Gaines was one of the loudest voices pushing this take. She shared the clip and tied it directly to Griner's history, specifically, her release from Russian custody in a prisoner swap, framing the alleged comment as proof of ingratitude. That take spread fast, way outside normal WNBA fan spaces, straight into political commentary circles. The other side, including sports journalists who actually slowed the footage down, argued a much simpler explanation fit better, that what she really said was closer to whack call. A frustrated jab at the refs. Not at any player. 2 readings. 1 clip. 0 audio. And the internet split exactly along the lines it already wanted to believe. This is worth sitting with. Because this isn't really a story about Brittney Griner. Not yet. It's a story about how a silent, 10-second clip can turn into a mirror. People weren't reacting to what she said. They were reacting to what they already expected her to say, filtered through what they already believed about her, about the league, about Clark, about the whole cultural moment around women's basketball in 2025. Think about how fast that clip spread, compared to how slow real verification actually is. Properly checking a claim like this means tracking down better audio, if it even exists. It means talking to people who were courtside. It means waiting, sometimes days, for the player to respond. None of that fits inside the window when a clip is going viral. Those first few hours, when engagement is highest and scrutiny is lowest. By the time slower, careful reporting caught up, the caption had already done its job. Millions of people had already formed an opinion. And for most of them, that opinion was never getting revisited. That's a dangerous place to start from, especially for a story that later gets treated as settled fact by people who never once mentioned there was no audio to confirm any of it. Griner finally breaks her silence. So what does the woman at the center of this actually say happened? This part, at least, we don't have to guess about. She was asked directly, on the record, weeks later. On June 15th, about 3 weeks after the incident, a reporter caught up with Griner before a game against the Washington Mystics and asked her point-blank about the viral clip. This wasn't one outlet chasing a scoop. Multiple sports and entertainment outlets covered the same on-the-record moment in the days after. Her answer wasn't some scripted PR line. It was, by most accounts, pretty unguarded. She said she remembered fouling out. She remembered being frustrated about the call, that officials said she put her hand in on Howard's drive to the basket. But when it came to her exact words walking to the bench, she said she honestly couldn't remember. 3 weeks removed from a split-second reaction in a tight game. The reporter offered to show her the clip to jog her memory. She said it wouldn't help. She wouldn't be able to tell any better than anyone else, since there was still no sound to hear. Which, if you think about it, is a fair answer. She's not a lip reader any more than the people online claiming they'd cracked the code from a shaky broadcast feed. Then came the harder question. Did she say something about race? Her answer was direct. She said there's no place for that kind of language in the league. That life throws hard things at you, and you dig deep and face them. And that it just wasn't something she'd say. Now, here's where we have to be honest about what this proves, and what it doesn't. A denial isn't forensic proof. Athletes deny things all the time. Sometimes truthfully. Sometimes not. We're not in a position to know for certain. And honestly, nobody watching a silent clip from 3 sections up is in a position to know for certain either. What we can say, with real confidence, is this. There is no verified, audio-confirmed record of Griner using a slur. What exists is a disputed lip reading, a more mundane competing read from people who studied the same footage, and a clear, on-the-record denial from Griner herself. Any version of this story that skips past that treats the slur as confirmed fact instead of a disputed guess, isn't reporting what happened. It's reporting what someone decided to believe, then presenting it like it's proven. That distinction is everything here. And it's exactly the distinction that got lost as this story kept spreading. The suspension myth. This is where the story takes its strangest turn. Somewhere in all the reposting and retelling, a detail got added that never actually happened. Videos started claiming the WNBA had suspended Griner over this. Some said it was a multi-game ban. Others said she'd been suspended indefinitely, or quietly pushed out of the league entirely. Some versions even piled on extra, unrelated claims about her status that had nothing to do with the original clip at all. Here's the plain fact: none of that occurred. Not days after. Not weeks after. Not ever tied to this moment. There's no league statement, no fine, no press release, no disciplinary record connecting any suspension to that May 22nd game or the clip that came out of it. If you actually search for it, what you'll find is a fact-checking trail. Sites like Snopes debunked these suspension claims throughout mid to late 2025, each one tracing back to social posts with zero sourcing behind them. That flips the usual assumption people make about viral claims. Normally we assume there's at least some truth buried in there somewhere. Here, fact-checkers weren't even arguing about whether the punishment was fair. They started from a more basic place. There was no punishment to argue about. This rumor wasn't an exaggerated version of something real. It was made up from scratch, then treated online like it was a confirmed league statement. And this wasn't even the only fake suspension story about her that year. A separate, unrelated claim went viral months later, in late July and early August of 2025, over a completely different and even more baseless accusation. That one spread just as fast, got just as little pushback, and was just as completely false. Around that same time, Griner actually was ejected from a game for incidental contact with a referee during a heated moment, which some corners of the internet then mistook, or twisted, into proof of a suspension that, again, never happened. She did miss a few games shortly after, but team reporting linked that to a neck injury. Not discipline. You're starting to see the pattern. Every few weeks, a new piece of real footage, an ejection, a frustrated moment, a foul out, gets fed into the same rumor machine and comes out the other side relabeled as a suspension. It didn't seem to matter that the suspension kept changing shape, or that no two viral posts agreed on how long it was supposed to last. The label stuck. The details underneath never had to. Why does this matter? Because that season, the league had launched a public campaign called No Space for Hate, aimed at exactly this kind of issue. Critics who believed the slur claim pointed to the league's silence as proof of hypocrisy. Proof, they said, that the campaign was empty marketing quietly protecting a star player. It's an easy argument to make, and an even easier one to repeat, because it turns silence into proof of guilt. That's a serious accusation. It deserves serious evidence before we buy it. But you can't credibly accuse a league of covering up a suspension that every available record shows was never issued in the first place. If anything, the league's silence here is exactly what you'd expect when there's no audio, no confirmed evidence, and no grounds for discipline. Not a cover-up. Just nothing to cover up. And that's exactly where the next part of this story gets complicated, because a suspension did eventually happen. Just not the one anyone was talking about. The suspension that actually happened. Here's the part almost nobody mentions because it doesn't fit the narrative, it wrecks it. Brittney Griner was, in fact, suspended. Just not for this. Not for anything close to this. More than a year after the May 2025 fallout, in June 2026, the league suspended Griner for 3 games after a physical altercation in a game between Dallas and Phoenix. According to League and Associated Press reporting, Griner got tangled up with an opposing player in the lane, a scuffle broke out, and she threw punches and shoved another Dallas player in the face with an open hand. 4 other players were disciplined for the same incident, from both teams. The player who started the initial contact got a 2-game suspension of her own. 2 more players got a game each for leaving the bench during the fight. Read that again. Different season. Different opponent, Dallas, not Indiana. Different arena. A physical fight, not a comment. And by this point, Griner wasn't even with Atlanta anymore. She'd gone back to the Phoenix Mercury, the team she spent her first 11 seasons with, after her 1-year Atlanta deal ended and she re-entered free agency. There is no honest reading of this that connects it to Caitlin Clark, to the May 2025 clip, or to any racial comment, real or alleged. It's a completely separate disciplinary case, for a completely separate reason, involving completely different people, more than a year removed from the moment everyone insists it was punishment for. 5 players. 2 teams. A scuffle in the paint. That's the whole story. No slur. No Clark. No fever. No Atlanta. And yet, if you scrolled past a video that opened with the May 2025 clip and then cut straight to, "The league finally suspended her," most people would never think to question the connection. The emotional logic feels satisfying. Frustration, controversy, consequence. Cause and effect, wrapped up neatly, timed perfectly for a video that needed a payoff. That's exactly what makes this kind of splice work so well. It doesn't ask you to believe anything wild. It just asks you not to check the dates. But it isn't cause and effect. It's two unrelated events, over a year apart, spliced together, sometimes carelessly, sometimes deliberately, into something that has all the shape of a real story and none of the substance. And once a video like that gets a few 100,000 views, it becomes the template for the next 5 videos that copy it. Each one drifting further from anyone who actually bothered to check the timeline. This is also worth remembering about an older piece of context that keeps getting dragged into this: Griner's 2022 detention in Russia and her release in a prisoner exchange. That's real, well-documented history. She was held for roughly 10 months after cannabis oil was found in her luggage at a Moscow airport and released in December 2022 as part of a trade for a convicted arms dealer. It's a genuinely significant chapter of her life, one that shaped years of public conversation long before Caitlin Clark ever entered the league. But it happened nearly 3 years before the Clark fallout. It's a totally different set of facts. It has no connection to a basketball game in Atlanta in May 2025. When commentators bring it up in the same breath as the slur claim, hinting at ingratitude, hinting at a pattern, they're not adding context. They're adding emotional weight to a claim that, on its own, still has no audio, no confirmation, and no league action behind it. It's a shortcut. Instead of proving the accusation, you attach it to something people already feel strongly about, and let those feelings do the convincing for you. That's how a manufactured story gets built. One real clip nobody can fully verify. One real historical fact from years earlier that has nothing to do with it. One real disciplinary case from over a year later that also has nothing to do with it. All narrated together like one continuous chain of events. They're not. They just feel like they are, if you're not paying close attention. And most people scrolling past a 15-second clip aren't. That's exactly why stories built this way keep working. Video after video. On a brand new audience every time. So there it is. Not a cover-up. Not delayed justice. Just two unrelated events wearing the same headline. A frustrated moment with no audio to confirm anything. And a real suspension over a year later for a fight that had nothing to do with Clark, race, or Atlanta at all. The rumor felt satisfying because it wrapped up clean. The truth doesn't wrap up clean. It just happens to be true. Next time a story feels too perfectly timed, that's your cue to slow down, not share. That's the record, not the rumor. If that's what you come here for, you know what to do. Subscribe.